basketball.
How good is Dior Johnson actually? Because if you look at the surface, the story makes no sense. This is a guy who was once a 5-star point guard, one of the most hyped guards in his class, who has now played for well over 10 different teams, pled guilty in a high-profile court case, disappeared into junior college, barely saw the floor in high major D1, and then suddenly popped back up at a mid-major, dropping over 20 a night. Some reports even call Tarleton State his 14th stop since high school. So, is Dior Johnson secretly elite, or just putting up crazy numbers far away from the spotlight? Let's break down how good Dior Johnson really is. Born in Kingston, New York in 2004, Dior was a prodigy almost from day one. As a freshman at Syracuse High School in New York, he was already putting up gaudy stat lines, and by his sophomore year, he had fully entered the national conversation. At Mayfair High School in California, he averaged 23 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 4.9 assists per game, showing off the same scoring instincts and rebounding from the guard spot that would follow him everywhere he played. Scouts talked about his creativity with the ball, his ability to run an offense or play off it, and his length and strength for a 6'3" guard. Some early scouting reports basically said it straight. Talent-wise, he's a no-brainer elite prospect. But from the very beginning, there was one red flag that kept popping up. Dior moved a lot. Over his high school years, he bounced between some of the biggest programs in the country. Syracuse in New York, IMG Academy, Oak Hill Academy, Finlay Prep, Mayfair, Centennial, Prolific Prep, and Southern California Academy, plus other short stops that made his high school timeline look more like an NBA journeyman's transaction log. Some recruiting writers literally described him as one of the most well-traveled prep prospects of the rankings era. On talent, nobody questioned it. At his peak, he was a 5-star prospect, ranked as high as top 3 nationally in his class by some services, and number 15 in the ESPN 100 for the class of 2022. When he committed to Oregon in 2021, his composite recruiting score put him just behind Bol Bol as one of the highest-rated recruits in Ducks history. College staff saw a strong, aggressive guard who could handle, pass, draw fouls, and create his own shot from all 3 levels. Stability, though, was another story. Dior committed to Syracuse in February 2020, then decommitted that November. He committed to Oregon in June 2021, then requested a release from his letter of intent a year later. Days after leaving Oregon, he committed to Pitt in June 2022, becoming Jeff Capel's highest-rated recruit at the program. On paper, it looked like the restart he needed: big-time ACC program, opportunity to run a team, and a clear path toward the NBA if things went right. Instead, everything went wrong. In September 2022, before he ever played a college game, Dior was charged in connection with a domestic violence incident involving a woman in Pittsburgh. Court documents and reporting show that he was initially charged with felony strangulation and several other counts. In December 2022, as part of a plea agreement, the felony charge was reduced and he pled guilty to 2 misdemeanors: simple assault and strangulation. He was sentenced to 1 year of probation, ordered to complete a batterer's intervention program, and required to undergo mental health evaluation and treatment if necessary. Pitt announced that season he would redshirt, and by August 2023, the university confirmed that he was no longer enrolled. For a lot of players, this would have been the end of the story. For Dior, it was the start of a completely different path. Instead of another high major, he went the junior college route, enrolling at Clarendon College in Texas for the 2023-24 season. And on the court, he absolutely exploded. At Clarendon, Dior averaged 29.7 points, 5.4 rebounds, and 5.9 assists per game, leading all of NCAA Division I in scoring. He shot 52.1% from the field, 41.7% from the 3, and 85.6% at the line. He even had a ridiculous 58-point game against Howard College, going 19 for 34 from the field and 15 of 16 at the stripe, which earned him NJCAA National Player of the Week. Those aren't just good JUCO numbers, those are broken controller stats. The production was so wild that by the end of the season, 247 Sports had him ranked as the #1 JUCO player in the country and the top JUCO point guard. High majors started calling again. The narrative flipped from, is Dior done, to, can this guy finally put it all together? His next step, UFC. On July 1st, 2024, Dior committed to Central Florida, heading into the Big 12 as the top-rated JUCO transfer in the nation. On paper, it looked like the perfect second chance. In reality, it was more complicated. For UCF, in the 2024-25 season, he played in 35 of 37 games, but came off the bench in all of them, logging just under 9 minutes per night. He put up 2.9 points, 1.0 rebound, and 0.8 assists per game, shooting about 46% from the field, another 30% from three, and 90% from the line. The flashes were there. He scored 11 points in 12 minutes in Wisconsin and dropped 13 in the college basketball crown semifinals against Villanova. But he never really carved out a big role. Context matters though. UCF had experienced guards, Big 12 competition is no joke, and Dior was jumping from being the unquestioned #1 option at JUCO to fighting for spot minutes on a high major team that didn't revolve around him. If you just look at the raw numbers, it's rough. If you look at it through a per-minute lens, you can at least see a guard who was efficient when he actually got opportunities. Still, after a year of coming off the bench, he hit the portal again. In June 2025, Dior transferred to Tarleton State, a WAC program that doesn't get nearly the same TV time as the schools he'd been with in high school, but does offer something he clearly wanted: the ball in his hands and full trust to go be a scorer. And at Tarleton, the numbers finally look like what people expected from Dior Johnson at the D1 level. Early in the 2025-26 season, playing for the Texans, he's averaging around 25 points per game on 57% shooting from the field, and close to 58% from three, leading all of the Division I in scoring, and immediately becoming one of the top offensive engines in the country. He's already been named WAC Player of the Week and Newcomer of the Week in back-to-back weeks, becoming the first Tarleton player ever to stack multiple WAC weekly awards in the same season, and one of only 2 players in the league history to go back-to-back in both categories since they introduced the Newcomer Award. There are nights when he comes off the bench and still drops 30+, torching defenses and pick and roll and hitting tough pull-ups like it's an open layup line. Clips of him giving Utah Valley 30+ off the bench have already made the rounds in draft Twitter circles. So now we're back to the original question: how good is Dior Johnson actually? Let's break it down in 3 parts: tools, production, and translation. First, the tools. At 6'3" and around 185 pounds, Dior has solid size for a lead guard. Going back to his high school and AAU scouting reports, the same themes pop up over and over: excellent handle, creative ball screen playmaking, ability to play through contact, and a knack for drawing fouls. On the Nike EYBL and other circuits, he was getting to the line frequently and hitting over 80% of his free throws. His floater game, mid-range pull-up, and off-the-dribble threes were all called real strengths, and in those settings he was putting up around 5 assists and 6 to 7 rebounds per game from the guard spot. He's not an above-the-rim freak athlete. Most scouting reports say the same thing. He's quick and shifty, but not a nuclear leaper. Yet, he compensates with craft, change of pace, hesitations, tight handle, and the ability to stop on a dime and get a jumper off without needing much separation. He can hit cutters, throw skip passes when the defense collapses, and when he's locked in, he can defend the ball and generate steals. On the flip side, talent evaluators have circled some real weaknesses too. Dating back to high school, they've pointed out that he takes a lot of tough contested pull-ups, that his three-point efficiency can be streaky outside of hot stretches, and that he can be turnover prone when he tries to do too much. He doesn't always get all the way to the rim, and there are questions about how his below-the-rim finishing will translate against bigger athletes at the very highest levels. Second, the production. If you zoom out on his college career, the numbers look weird. At Clarendon, he was the best scorer in all of JUCO. 29.7 points, 5.4 rebounds, and 5.9 assists per game on 52, 42, 86 shooting splits. That's absurd efficiency and volume at any level, and it shows that against solid competition, if you give him the keys and live with some tough shots, he can create offense on basically every possession. At UCF, the counting stats cratered, but in a tiny role, he still shot the ball well inside the arc, hit 90% of his free throws, and had individual games where he looked like the most dynamic guard on the floor. The story there isn't that he can't play high major basketball, it's more he never convinced the staff to fully trust him. Now at Tarleton, he's doing what he did at Clarendon, but this time against D1 competition. Over 20 points per game, leading all of Division I in scoring, elite efficiency, and clear alpha score impact on wins and losses. That tells us something important. The scoring talent is real, and it travels. The third and hardest question, translation. Does all of this mean Dior Johnson is secretly an NBA caliber guard hiding at a mid-major? Or is he more likely a dominant college scorer whose game doesn't quite scale up? On the he's that good side of the argument, he has a legit NBA-style skill set, pick-and-roll creation, tough shot making, and real touch from three in the line. His JUCO and Tarleton efficiency suggests his shooting is much better now than it was in some of his earlier high school events. He's shown he can be the best player on the floor, run an offense, and carry a huge usage load without completely falling apart efficiency-wise. And at 22, he still has time to clean up decision-making and prove that he can run a team in a more structured system. On the other hand, his resume is going to make front offices nervous. Multiple decommitments, more than 10 different schools and teams since high school, a domestic violence case that led to guilty pleas, and constant movement from program to program. All of that raises serious questions about off-court decision-making, reliability, and how he'll handle adversity in a pro environment. On the floor, he's still a 6'3" guard who isn't a vertical athlete, and teams will want to see if he can defend at a high level and be efficient without having the ball in his hands every possession. So, how good is Dior Johnson actually? Well, right now the most honest answer is this. He's absolutely good enough to be the leading scorer in Division I, and one of the best scoring guards at the mid-major D1 level. The talent that made him a 5-star prospect never really went away. It just got buried under transfers, off-court issues, and role changes. When he's in a situation that gives him freedom and responsibility, his production looks like that of a legit high-level pro guard. Whether that translates into the NBA or whether his path ends up being overseas or in the G League will come down to everything he does from here. Can he show consistency, buy-in on both ends, and prove that he can be more than just a bucket getter on his 14th team? Because the tools are real, the numbers at Clarendon and Tarleton are real. The question now isn't whether Dior Johnson is talented, it's whether this is finally the stop, where he turns talent into a stable long-term career. If you want more deep dive breakdowns like this one, make sure to subscribe and drop a comment. Where do you think Dior Johnson's career goes from here?